So if we have a look at the two of them here, we can see Ben has a very narrow base here. His feet are parallel and he doesn't have a staggered stance, so he's really got no base behind him. The other thing that's important about this situation is looking at the difference in height of hips. So you can see, compared to Benji, Ben's hips are actually quite high, which is going to allow Benji, if he can get past the hands and with the grip fighting, allow Benji fairly easy entry into the legs. Now, as Ben has stepped forward, we can see Benji's got a nice hand position right at the back of his knee here, and his other hand is just on the inside of Ben's elbow. So what we've got here with Benji is a very nice cross grip control of Ben's body. So he's got a hand on one side, a hand on the other side, one low, one high. That diagonal cross control is giving him a lot of control over Ben's ability to move his body, particularly rotating it. Now, as Ben tries to adjust his stance with his left leg trapped slightly, we can see Benji's been able to take advantage of the control that he's got over the left leg, pulling that knee in nice and tight to his chest, keeping this grip up here, and he's been able to rotate Ben in the direction of this trapped leg. What that's going to do is that there is no base on Ben's left hand side, and as we move forward, we can see Benji gets a very nice simple takedown. Now, what I'd like to see here more would be Benji taking advantage of this situation that he's got to control those legs. In particular, this leg in between his legs. If he traps that a lot more, because it's a free trap, it's already between his legs, he's going to find it easier to start dealing with both of Ben's legs and his hips with regard to passing the legs. Now we can see here, Benji's not controlling the legs fully, which is allowing Ben to maneuver his hips and constantly trying to readjust his legs as he starts working his legs back in between himself and Benji. And finally, in there he has not fully closed guard, but now he's got Benji between his legs, which is a lot better position for Ben. Now right here we can see Benji making a fairly common beginner error. It's not a good idea to be going for submissions when you're inside someone's closed guard like that. With his legs wrapped around Benji's waist, Ben has a lot more control over Benji's body than Benji has over Ben's. Here we have a situation where we can see Benji still focusing on trying to control the upper body, not so much the legs and the hips. This has created a situation where now Benji has his head far in front of his hips. His current base is there, and a foot hidden by Ben's leg tucked in behind there. As he's lifted his knee up, it's allowed Ben to cleanly free his left leg, but it's also created a situation where now Benji's base is even worse than it was before. His feet are so far apart, with this upper leg being relatively straight. His base, his stance, is very unstable in this situation. Now what we've got here is Ben has taken advantage of the fact that Benji's not controlling his legs and is still more occupied on the upper body. Ben's managed to get his foot right on Benji's thigh here, and he's got a grip on the back of the elbow. Now with Benji's hand on Ben's bicep here, that grip on the elbow is going to make it extremely difficult for Benji to pull his arm out and use it as any sort of post or base. Now as we continue forward, we can see that Ben has used his left leg to extend Benji's out, and with no elbow on the ground, no foot on the ground, no knee on the ground, Benji has zero base all down that side. And we can see Ben has his right leg, his shin and knee on the far side of Benji's hip. And as we continue, he gets a very nice easy sweep up to the mount position. Here, Benji takes advantage of the fact that Ben hasn't quite settled in, controls one side of his body, and does a very quick bridge and roll. Upon landing on top, he controls Ben's hands to stop him getting his grips, then allows him to then control the hips, which he then uses to break open the guard. Now right here, it would be good for Benji to start controlling the legs and hips of Ben better, rather than looking to control the grips. This has created a situation where Benji has disconnected here his body from Ben's hips area. Now Benji's moved back to make space so he can now try and pass Ben's leg over in front of him as he continues to look at passing his legs. The problem here with this disconnect, he's not controlling Ben's hips enough, which is going to allow Ben to continue moving his hips and his legs to prevent Benji from getting a clean pass. So as we continue, we can see as Benji tries to push the leg across, Ben's able to readjust his hips and his legs and continue with a guard. Now if we stop here, we can see Benji has taken his body well over Ben's hips, and Ben's taken advantage of this with this hook on the inside of Benji's leg. And we're going to see Ben utilize that hook and Benji's momentum passing over his body to rotate himself to follow Benji's movement and then try and gain back some sort of guard. So here we can see Benji locking up the upper body, but he's not controlling Ben's legs or Ben's hips. And we can see Ben making space, moving his hips away, trying to get a bit of a disconnect so he can create space to get his legs back in and start looking to get some sort of guard. If we stop here, we can see Ben's moved his hips completely away from Benji, and now he's able to post with this arm on inside of Benji's leg near his hip to maintain that distance as he continues to try and move and gain his guard back. So here we go. Now he's got his left knee on the inside and he's able to sit up, and Benji's hanging onto the head. At this point, unless Benji can get a clean attack on the neck, he should be looking at disconnecting and trying to put Ben back on his back. Having cleared his head, we're now going to see Ben adjust his angle to get himself from in front of Benji to try to get a better attacking angle. Now we see as he moves around, what he's had to do is he's had to leave a foot behind Benji's collecting the ankle here, controlling the ankle, and we're going to see as Ben continues to move, that leg is going to be extended, becoming a lever, and Benji's going to use that lever to put Ben straight back on his back. And we see Benji close his hips in a second. Here we go. He closes his hips in to control Ben's legs. So he's pinning Ben's legs quite well, controlling his hips. And now we see Benji sit back a little bit to make some space as he clears the leg. And as he does that, Ben goes with it and he starts to roll to his knees. So as Ben moves into turtle position, we can see a very big gap here on the inside of Ben's hip. Now in an ideal situation, instead of stepping over with this leg up here, Benji should be looking at utilizing this knee or this foot, trying to put it into that hole, which is going to be your first hook. And while he's doing that, he should be looking at securing the upper body and trying to get some level of seatbelt control, rather than stepping over looking for the first hook on the far side. As we continue, we can see Benji's now got his hips 3/4 on Ben's back, and now he's looking for the seatbelt control. He's connected his hands. As we continue, Benji's now going to look at rolling to the other side. Now this first foot, he hasn't got in as a hook. And while it's hard to see, Ben's leg is flat on the ground, which means his hip is flat on the ground. There's no hole on that side, so there's nowhere for Benji to put a hook on the opposite side as he throws his leg over and continues the roll. And we land. We can see here that Benji's managed to get a first hook on the upper side of Ben's body. But what Ben has done here, it's hard to see, but he's moved his hip and he's actually sitting on Benji's leg, making it very difficult for Benji to get that second bottom hook in. He's now going to continue sitting on that leg and sliding his hip over, and then turn in to gain a half guard position as Benji comes up on top. Then utilizing a knee shield just to keep some space as he starts trying to look at clearing his head. And now he has a knee shield and a level of half guard. Now here, instead of battling grips, it would be good to see Benji controlling the legs and the hips more. As we can see, Ben's able to freely move himself around and continue to attack at Benji while Benji's playing around with the grips. So we can see Ben's trying to move himself into position to get himself underneath Benji's base to look for a sweep. Benji's doing well keeping his hips back, but he's only been defensive at this point in time. Instead of dealing with these grips, he should be looking at trying to make his own grips on the legs and Ben's hips to prevent Ben from doing what he's doing and being able to use his legs and his hips as effectively as he is. Now here we see Benji make a little bit of a mistake. He's reached over the top, trying to secure some level of guillotine or head control, but his head is much lower than Ben's head. So he's reaching up, over and around. So we can see his elbow is quite high. What would be better is if Benji's head was more up here and his arm was going down and around, so his elbow was a lot deeper around Ben's neck and Benji's posture was more upright. We can see what Benji's created here for himself is a situation where his shoulders are angled down towards the ground. And the other thing that we can just see here is Ben is controlling just above Benji's elbow. So he's actually controlling Benji's left arm, keeping it very nice and tight into Benji's body. As we continue, as Benji pushes his weight forward. So it's a little bit difficult to see, but we've got Benji's hips here, Benji's head here. There's a fair bit of distance between head and hips. This grip that we're talking about that Ben's got on Benji's elbow, it's taking away this arm that he can use as a post. So now what we have is a nice corner here where Benji has no ability to base or post out. As we continue, Ben gets a very simple sweep that was given to him effectively by Benji's body position. Right here, Benji should be letting go of the head and starting to get his arms in as frames to stop Ben from settling into side control and controlling the situation. Now we can see Benji's getting his arms in, starting to frame up, making it a lot more difficult for Ben to get that chest to chest pressure. And Benji's just been able to, using those frames, move his hips and start creating some space between himself and Ben to start getting his legs into position. Benji's doing a very good job. He's got this foot on the ground, the knee vertical. This leg is in a very good position to start utilizing to move his hips around to either push into Ben or move his hips backwards away from Ben. As we continue, see he plants his foot, and we're going to see Benji start to try to move his hip away. Creating a lot of space to get his legs in. Now here, Benji's brought his right leg across the top as a knee shield. In a half guard situation, that would be quite fine. Now in that half guard situation, this bottom leg would be in between Ben's legs and actually wrapped around his leg popping out here. With that control over one of Ben's legs to some degree, the knee shield is quite effective. The problem we have here, this leg is in front of Ben, this leg is in front of Ben. If Ben's able to keep his hips in tight, bring his chest down, he's going to be able to pin Benji's legs, making it extremely difficult for Benji to utilize his legs and his hips, giving Ben the opportunity to start looking to pass the legs into side control or potentially even mount. Here we can see Ben is starting to try to stuff this leg in between his. But the problem we have with his ability to control that leg is the height of his hips from the ground. That distance there has created a large hole here. And we can see Benji's knees are already starting to poke out. And if Ben doesn't do something to control that leg, like straightening it out and then flattening his body, he's going to lose control of that leg completely. So he hasn't done anything to straighten the leg. And we can see the bend in Benji's knee is allowing him to continue to move his legs and utilize his legs. Ben is doing a good job of trying to now pin that leg. But again, with Benji's knees bent, he's got the ability to move his hips. And Benji's done a very, very good job here of adjusting his hips. So his hips are now on top of Ben's head. So now Ben is carrying a lot of Benji's weight. And we can just see with Ben's arms, he's now starting to try to pull Benji's leg in, and he's looking for a single leg off his knees. It's not the strongest position for him, but it is a chance for him to potentially get Benji back on his back. And he loses the position, and he maintains the grip on the leg as he attempts to try to finish, but Benji's doing a good job of trying to sprawl, and he's making it difficult for Ben to keep that leg in tight to help him finish the move. Now, Ben's going to step over here. As he steps over, potentially one of his thought processes is he's going to use that to start straightening this leg of Benji's as he starts looking to try and gain some form of half guard. And we see Benji doing a very good thing here. He's acknowledged where Ben's leg is, and he slid his arm inside Ben's knee as a bit of a wedge. And if we keep moving forward, we see he uses that arm to get rid of Ben's leg. And now he continues to look at trying to sprawl and break his leg free from Ben's grip. Benji's doing well, keeping his chest and his weight on top of Ben, making it difficult for Ben to start posturing up a little bit and putting more pressure into the legs. So Ben's now let go of the leg and he's turtled up. And he's done a very good job. Let's just back that up a little bit. As Ben's turtled up, we've got Benji has put his chest firmly on top of Ben's back, and he's looking to get the underhook. And we can assume that his next move would be to bring that arm in front around to try to get a seatbelt situation. The danger in this position, if Benji's got his head a little bit past Ben's body, and Ben can clamp that arm down so Benji doesn't have an arm free to post out, what we're going to see is Ben is going to tuck his knee into his body, and he's going to roll that in this direction, which is going to take Benji over with him. We see him roll, Benji goes over. As Ben turns into Benji, he's now got a side control position. We can't quite see what's happening,